She didn't leave because you loved her wrong. She left because you never made her feel like losing you was possible. That single realization changes everything you thought you knew about attraction. Here's what nobody tells men about the early stages of dating. Women aren't consciously deciding whether they respect you. Their instincts are doing it automatically, quietly, in the background. Every single interaction. And by the time you notice the dynamic has changed, the decision was made weeks ago. There are 5 invisible lines drawn at the very beginning of any connection. Cross them in the wrong direction and something shifts permanently. Not dramatically, not loudly, just quietly, irreversibly. She stops feeling that electric uncertainty around you and starts feeling something far more dangerous. Comfort without desire. This isn't about becoming someone colder or more distant. It isn't about psychological warfare or manufactured mystery. It's about understanding the precise moments where men hand over something they can never reclaim, and why that gift destroys exactly what they were trying to build. Miss these 5 principles and you won't just lose her interest. You'll spend months pouring energy into a dynamic that was already decided against you. Understanding them doesn't just change how she sees you, it changes how you carry yourself. Forever. Most advice tells men what to say. This goes deeper. This is about the invisible architecture underneath attraction, the structural forces that determine whether a woman feels pulled toward you or quietly begins to look elsewhere. And it starts with the boundary most men never even realize exists. Stay with this, because the first one alone will make you rethink every relationship you've ever had. Number 1, never expose your financial world before genuine investment exists. There's a conversation men have early in dating that feels completely harmless. Salary comes up. Investment accounts get mentioned. The new car, the upcoming vacation, the recent promotion. It flows naturally into conversation, and men walk away thinking, that went well, she seemed impressed. They misread the room entirely. When you volunteer financial information to a woman who hasn't yet decided if she wants you, you don't create intimacy. You create an inventory. Without realizing it, you've transformed yourself from a mysterious possibility into a measurable resource. And that transformation is one way. Think of it this way. Imagine walking into an art gallery and the artist runs up immediately to tell you exactly what every painting costs, what materials he used, how long each piece took, and what his annual income looks like. The mystique evaporates instantly. The art stops being something you want to experience and becomes something you're calculating whether to purchase. That's precisely what premature financial disclosure does to male attraction. It turns feeling into math. Men fall into this pattern because generations of conditioning taught them that provision equals desirability, that showing a woman your capacity to provide security will trigger attraction. But here's the psychological reality she doesn't even consciously understand herself. Provision doesn't ignite desire in the early stages. It extinguishes it. Because desire requires uncertainty, and financial transparency eliminates uncertainty faster than almost anything else. Once she knows your numbers, the spark of wondering becomes the logic of evaluating. You stop being someone she wants to know and become someone she's deciding whether to keep. The worst version of this trap is the rescue instinct. She mentions rent was brutal this month. Her car made a noise that sounds expensive. She's stressed about something financial, and you feel the magnetic pull to solve it immediately. To be the man who steps up, the man who handles things. But stepping in financially before commitment is established doesn't communicate strength. It communicates that your boundaries dissolve the moment an opportunity to prove usefulness appears. Women, particularly those with strong instincts, are not always conscious of this evaluation. But somewhere in her psychology, a quiet note gets filed. He fills gaps. He can be accessed. And once that note exists, the dynamic it creates is nearly impossible to reverse. You don't need to be withholding or cold. You don't need speeches about protecting your wealth or dramatic boundaries around money talk. You simply maintain your position. You listen with warmth. You acknowledge the stress without volunteering solutions. You stay in the relationship without funding it prematurely. The woman genuinely drawn to you as a person, she respects that composure immediately. The woman who was auditioning you for a provider role, she drifts towards someone more willing to audition. That isn't rejection. That's the filter working exactly as it should. Number 2, never allow disrespect to pass without acknowledgement, especially the quiet kind. The disrespect that destroys relationships never announces itself. Men who are waiting for obvious insults or raised voices miss the entire phenomenon, because the real erosion happens in moments so small they barely register. She cuts you off mid-thought and redirects the conversation to herself. She makes a joke about you that lands just slightly too sharp and then says you're too sensitive when your expression changes. She talks about her former partner in comparisons that never favor you. She responds to your messages on her timeline, not yours, but expects your immediate attention when she reaches out. None of these feel like confrontation material. Each one alone seems laughable to address. And that's the psychological architecture of how respect actually erodes. It doesn't collapse from one explosion. It drains through 100 tiny unplugged holes. From a behavioral psychology standpoint, this is boundary testing. It isn't always malicious. Often it's completely instinctual. She isn't sitting somewhere scheming to disrespect you. She's simply discovering through action and reaction where your edges are. Every unchallenged moment teaches her something. Every silence extends the permission. Picture this scene. You're at dinner with her social circle. Someone asks how things are between you two. She tilts her head and says something like, "Oh, he grows on you," like a slow headache that becomes familiar. The table laughs. She laughs. You force a smile and steer the conversation somewhere safer. What just happened wasn't banter. It was a public calibration. She reduced your status in a group setting and then watched your face. Not cruelly, almost scientifically. And your smile told her everything she needed to know about where your self-respect boundary actually sits. Men tell themselves that absorbing these moments makes them appear mature, grounded, above pettiness. The psychological reality is the opposite. Composure and passivity are not the same thing. True composure doesn't require silence. It requires clarity. When you let subtle disrespect slide, the pattern compounds rapidly. Her friends observe it and update their perception of you. She observes their perception shift and updates hers accordingly. The next small moment passes easier, then the next, until the cumulative drift has carried you so far from mutual respect that the original dynamic seems fictional. High-caliber men don't respond with explosion or sarcasm or matching the energy negatively. They respond immediately, directly, and without emotional charge. One clear observation: no lengthy explanation, no wounded tone, just a calm line in the ground. "That one wasn't funny. Keep it between us," said neutrally without drama while looking her directly in the eye. Then the moment moves on. No sulking, no lecture, just a clean, unmistakable message. That response reshapes the entire frame in seconds. It communicates that your self-respect isn't negotiable regardless of audience, energy, or social discomfort. And a woman who genuinely values you will feel something unexpected in that moment. Safety. because a man who protects his own dignity will protect hers too. Respect isn't accumulated through patience. It isn't earned by absorbing enough small humiliations. It's maintained in real time, one clear moment at a time. Number 3, never let your schedule collapse around her presence. Men make this mistake out of excitement, not weakness. And that's what makes it so seductive and so destructive simultaneously. You meet someone and the connection feels rare. You don't want to risk losing momentum. So unconsciously, your life begins reorganizing itself around her availability. The workout you never miss starts getting skipped when she texts late. The friends you've committed to seeing become negotiable the moment she suggests something spontaneous. Your morning routine, your personal goals, your creative projects all suddenly become flexible in a way they never were before her. You think this signals investment. You think showing her she matters enough to rearrange your life demonstrates the depth of your interest. From her psychological perspective, it signals something entirely different and considerably less attractive. Think of it like ocean tides and a shoreline. A shoreline that holds its shape, that maintains its structure regardless of wave pressure, is permanent. Trustworthy. It can anchor things. A shoreline that reshapes itself with every wave offers nothing to stand on, nothing to trust. When your schedule bends instantly and completely around her presence, you don't look devoted. You look like you have no shore. And women instinctively don't build on sand. The deeper psychological principle here is what her mind is actually asking beneath the surface of every interaction. It isn't simply, does he like me? It's, does this man have a life substantial enough to contain a partnership? Is there something here that existed before me and will exist after me? Is there direction, structure, identity? When the answer is clearly yes, something changes in how she experiences time with you. It becomes an event rather than a default. She has to schedule herself into something that was already running. And that positioning creates genuine value. When the answer is clearly no, when you're perpetually available, when there's no schedule to work around, when you rearrange everything at a moment's notice, you become atmospheric. Always present, taken for granted the way air is taken for granted. Nobody treasures what has no limit. This isn't performing unavailability. Manufactured busyness is transparent and unattractive. This is something more fundamental. Having a life with actual weight before she enters it and maintaining that weight after she does. She texts late on a Tuesday wanting to connect spontaneously. You have an early start, a commitment already made, a routine you're protecting. The anxious move is to cancel your plans, hope the spontaneity translates into closeness, and signal through every rearrangement that her impulse matters more than your structure. The grounded move is warm, genuine, and completely unhurried. You acknowledge her. You don't make her feel dismissed. But your morning isn't negotiable. What she registers isn't rejection. What she registers is that this man has something worth protecting. And suddenly, time with him feels like something worth earning. Number 4, never absorb her emotional chaos before she's chosen you. This trap is particularly effective because it wears the disguise of deep connection. She opens up early, not gradually, but fully, almost overwhelmingly. The past relationships that damaged her, the family wounds she carries, the patterns that have followed her through every connection, the ways she's been failed by every man before you. And as she talks, as the vulnerability pours out, you feel something powerful happening. This is real, you think. This is different from surface level dating conversation. She trusts me. Nobody gets this close this fast unless it means something. What you're misreading is the difference between vulnerability and recruitment. There's a psychological pattern worth understanding here. Emotional expression without mutual investment doesn't create bonding, it creates dependence. When a woman offloads her entire emotional history onto a man who hasn't yet been chosen by her, she isn't bonding with him. She's installing him in a functional role. You become the late night stabilizer, the person she texts at 2 a.m. during anxiety spirals, the one who talks her down from panic, reassures her through insecurity, absorbs the after effects of her complicated history. You're steady, you're reliable, you're safe. And those are beautiful qualities, except that safe, in this context, isn't the category where desire lives. Think of it like a professional relationship. When you hire someone to carry heavy things, you appreciate their strength enormously. You depend on them. You'd be lost without them. But you don't feel romantic tension toward them. You feel gratitude. You feel utility. And those feelings, however warm, occupy a completely different psychological space than attraction. Men confuse emotional access with emotional connection. But access given freely, repeatedly, without reciprocal investment, doesn't deepen a woman's desire. It deepens her reliance. And reliance is the quiet extinction of polarity. Masculine polarity, the essential tension that attraction requires, doesn't survive in the presence of constant emotional absorption. When you become her container, her steadiness, her processing partner before she's invested in you as a man, the dynamic flattens. The mystery dissolves. The tension that pulls her toward you gets replaced by a comfort that, paradoxically, removes her desire to move toward you at all. The corrected approach isn't emotional unavailability. It isn't coldness or strategic withholding of empathy. You can be present. You can listen with genuine care. You can acknowledge the difficulty of what she's carrying. But there's a fundamental difference between witnessing someone's emotional world and volunteering to maintain it. You stay grounded in your own experience. You don't become the solution to her history. You don't let your availability become a crisis management service. When the emotional weight extends beyond what's reciprocally appropriate, you gently hold your position. And something interesting happens when you do. Women bond most powerfully with the men they have to invest in, not the men who invest endlessly in them. When you pace emotional intimacy, when she has to meet you rather than simply pour into you, the attachment that forms has actual weight. It comes from her choosing to step toward you rather than simply falling into you because you made yourself so available that falling was effortless. Intimacy earned builds desire. Intimacy given freely builds dependency. And dependency is never where attraction lives. Number 5, never respond to her withdrawal by increasing your effort. Everything was present. The energy, the reciprocity, the forward momentum of genuine connection building. Then something shifted. Subtly at first. Her responses take longer. The warmth in her messages cools slightly. The effort that was matching yours starts lagging behind. And the instinct that fires in your nervous system is ancient and immediate. Something is wrong. Fix it. More presence. More reassurance, more proof that you're invested, more effort to close the distance before it grows uncrossable. That instinct, however natural, is the single most reliable way to guarantee the distance grows permanent. From an attraction dynamics perspective, the moment you increase your investment in response to her withdrawal, you fundamentally restructure the power balance of the connection. She now holds the lever. She retreats and you pursue. She reduces and you expand. She tests the air and you rush to fill it. And once that pattern establishes itself, even briefly, desire doesn't recover the way you want it to. Because desire requires polarity, tension, uncertainty, and you just eliminated all three by making your interest a guaranteed constant regardless of her behavior. Imagine a game where one player knows with absolute certainty that the other will never stop playing, never walk away, never let the board go quiet. The known player loses all urgency. There's no reason to lean in, no risk of the game ending, no real stakes. The certainty itself drains the game of meaning. That's what panic effort does to attraction. It removes the stakes. And without stakes, interest evaporates. Men justify this response in several ways. They tell themselves that consistency is virtue, that a good man doesn't play games, that showing up reliably is what love looks like. And in an established, committed relationship, that's true. But in early stage dating, where investment is still being decided, flooding someone with presence in response to their distance doesn't communicate virtue. It communicates fear. Fear of loss. Fear of not being chosen. Fear that without your constant effort, the connection will slip through your fingers. And women feel fear differently than men expect. It doesn't pull them in. It clarifies for them why the dynamic feels slightly suffocating. The 3 predictable moves men make when she pulls back. They fill every silence with messages. They offer emotional availability on demand to reassure her they're present. And they escalate gestures, plans, compliments, effort. Each of these moves accelerates the loss they're desperately trying to prevent. The grounded alternative is harder because it requires trusting something counterintuitive. When she pulls back, you hold your position. Not with coldness, not with punishing silence, not with manufactured disinterest, simply with the steady continuation of your own life, your own rhythm, your own presence that doesn't require her attention to justify itself. You do not fill the silence. You allow it to exist and breathe and do its work. 2 things can happen from that position. If the connection was genuine and her withdrawal was circumstantial, stress, distraction, personal processing, the space you hold creates room for her to move back toward you. She recalibrates. The imbalance corrects because you gave it room to self-correct rather than drowning it in forced effort. If she doesn't return, the information that delivers is painful but clean. She wasn't pulling back temporarily, she was drifting permanently. And your composed response didn't cause that drift. It simply revealed it faster, saving you from spending additional months amplifying your investment in a direction that had already been decided. Men say, "If I stop trying, I'll lose her." The deeper truth is that you were already losing yourself trying to keep something that only stayed close when you were overgiving. Your panic never saved the connection. It only delayed your clarity. Absence creates the one thing effort never can. Space for her to feel what she actually loses when you aren't chasing her. And if that space reveals nothing worth protecting, you gained something more valuable than her return. You recovered yourself. What you've just absorbed isn't a checklist of dating rules. It's an understanding of how attraction actually forms and dissolves beneath conscious awareness. 5 principles. 5 invisible structures. 1 unified purpose. Ensuring that who you are when you enter a relationship doesn't slowly disappear while you're trying to maintain it. Controlling financial exposure preserves mystery. Addressing disrespect immediately preserves dignity. Protecting your schedule preserves identity. Pacing emotional intimacy preserves polarity. Holding your position through withdrawal preserves self-respect. Each one acts as a filter. Women who are drawn to a man with genuine structure, with a life that existed before her and will exist beyond her, will feel something real with you. Something based on actual desire, not comfortable habit. Women who were only comfortable when you were overextended, endlessly available, and emotionally bottomless will experience your structure as resistance. They'll drift. And that drift isn't failure. It's the system functioning correctly. Boundaries don't make you difficult to love. They make it possible for the right woman to love the actual you instead of a version of you that's been slowly hollowed out, trying to earn her comfort. Because real attraction doesn't require you to shrink. It requires you to stand fully in your own life, with your own direction, and let what connects genuinely connect, without chasing, without performing, without disappearing. The most important truth in everything here is this: you don't become more attractive by demanding more from the women you meet. You become more attractive by demanding more from yourself. If that landed somewhere real for you, stay connected to this space. It exists for men who are done feeling confused, drained, and invisible in dynamics they're working harder in than anyone else. Like what resonated? Pass it to a man who's been giving everything and receiving nothing in return. Drop a comment telling me which of these 5 hit the place you didn't expect. This isn't here to make you feel better about where you are. It's here to change where you're going.